The Atari 7800 was originally scheduled to come out in 1984, but when Warner sold the home division of Atari to Jack Tramiel of Commodore 64 fame, the system was shelved. However, after the NES reignited the video game market and legal matters were worked out concerning payments to GCC, the developer of the 7800 and its early titles, the system finally launched nationwide in 1986. Today I'm going to take a look at the 10 launch titles that came out during its freshman year. Normally, you would probably call a title a launch title if it came out on day one, but information on the launch of the 7800 can be spotty, so I'm going to stick with all the titles from 1986. Truthfully, most of these titles were probably already complete or mostly completed in 1984. They are distinct in the system's library since all, except pole position, came with grayscale artwork from the box on the cartridge, and it seems some of the first cartridges even had spring dust shields on the bottom. For this video, I'm going to go through the games in part number order, although part numbers do not always indicate the order of release. First is CX7801, Centipede. This port of the 1981 arcade hit has a lot in common with many of the titles on this list. It updates a port that previously appeared on the 2600, now with better graphics, a simpler interface that allows you to select one of 4 difficulties, and new 2-player options. In the case of Centipede, for 2 players you can alternate turns or work together building the same score or compete at the same time with the ability to stun the other player. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the game, but in the odd chance that you're not, your goal is to shoot the descending centipede. When you shoot a segment, it turns into a mushroom. If there aren't enough mushrooms on screen, a flea will drop down, adding more. Scorpions can poison mushrooms, which causes the centipede segments to dive straight to the bottom when they touch it. Spiders can take away mushrooms, but they're a real hazard. When you shoot a spider, you get more points the closer it is to you when you shoot it. Overall, this was one of the best ports of the game when it came out, and it's still fun to play today. Next, we have CX7802 Asteroids, named after the 1979 arcade game. In early catalogs, it was called 3D Asteroids and then Deluxe Asteroids, and while in development, it was jokingly called Meatballs in Space, since at one point during the process, all the asteroids were red. Like Centipede, you have 4 modes of difficulty and 2-player modes where you can either alternate turns or play together, either against one another or working as a team. This is basic asteroids. You blow up rocks and they get smaller as you destroy them, and you avoid the occasional UFO. And you use hyperspace in case of emergencies to disappear and reappear on a random spot on the screen, which still can be dangerous when you appear. When the 7800 came out in Europe, this game was built into the system, so if you turned it on without a game cartridge inserted, you could play Asteroids. The animation of the asteroids is nice, and the game plays well enough, but the game is pretty basic, and I think I actually enjoy the 2600 port a little bit more when playing as a single player. CX7803 is Dig Dug, which is based on the 1982 Namco arcade game. This is a great port of the game. You go around killing enemies either by dropping rocks on their head or inflating them to death, which is incredibly horrific to think about. You can auto-inflate them, but using the joystick to quickly break away and mashing the button can lead to multiple and quicker inflations. Drop 2 rocks and a bonus item appears in the middle of the screen. There are only 2 difficulties this time, and 2 players must take turns. This was one of my favorites growing up, and it still holds up well today. CX7804 is Food Fight, and it's based on the 1983 Atari arcade game of the same name. This was one of the few console exclusives for the system, although it also appeared on the Atari XE computer line. You can once again select from 4 difficulties, but 2 players can only play alternating. This game may not look like much, but it's actually incredibly fun. Your goal is to reach the ice cream cone before it melts, but holes in the floor and chefs are in your way. Thankfully, you can pick up food to chuck at the chefs. Sometimes the game will even show an instant replay of your round if it thinks you did really good. Every retro gaming fan should spend some time with this one. CX7805 is Galaga, based on the 1981 arcade game. Galaga may be my favorite fixed space shooter, and the 7800 port does a solid job. Of course, the main hook is one type of enemy can capture your ship, but if you shoot it right, the captured ship will drop, allowing you to have double the firepower and, in my opinion, double the fun. The game also had some nice bonus rounds to help break up the action. 2 players can only alternate, and you only have 3 modes of difficulty with this one. CX7806 is Joust, which is based on the 1982 Midway arcade game. The 4 difficulty options are back, and 2 players must play at the same time. Your goal is to be higher than your opponent when you make contact with them in order to turn them into an egg. Touching eggs gets rid of them, but unattended eggs can hatch into new and sometimes more difficult opponents. When the lava pits get exposed, players who get too close to them can be pulled in by the hand of a troll. Waves often have unique bonuses, like extra points if you don't lose a life, or points for working together or taking out your partner in 2-player games. This is one of those games that didn't look like much, but is pretty fun to play. It was also the best-selling game for the 7800 in 1986, being the only title to surpass 30,000 copies sold. CX7807 is Ms. Pac-Man, which is based on the hugely popular 1982 Midway arcade game. And what can I say? It's Ms. Pac-Man. You eat dots, avoid ghosts, unless you eat an Energizer, and then try to eat them for points while you can. You can also eat bonus items for points. Occasionally you get an intermission screen and new maze layouts. 2 players can alternate, and you can select multiple fruits as a difficulty setup. This is another solid port, and in my humble opinion, this should have been the pack-in game when the system came out. CX7808 is Pole Position 2, based on the 1983 Namco arcade game. This was the original pack-in for the 7800 when the system came out, and it was pretty much the only way to play Pole Position 2 at home. This is a single-player only game with 4 tracks to pick from, which range from simple to pretty tough. You start a preliminary lap to try to gain the best position possible for the following race. In that race, you avoid more cars and cross the finish line to extend your time. It's a good port, but it baffles me that it was a pack-in game, especially since it was for 1 player only, but the system came bundled with 2 joysticks. How does that make sense? CX7809 is Robotron 2084, based on the 1982 Williams arcade game. You could play 1 or 2 players co-op, and you now have 5 modes of difficulty. Here you blow up the bad guys, avoid obstacles, and try to rescue the humans. With a single joystick, the game is so-so, since you can only shoot in the direction you are moving. But the game has a 2-joystick mode for a single player, where joystick 1 moves and joystick 2 fires in the direction you're pointing. With the right setup, this game is an absolute blast. This game also showed one of the strengths of the 7800, which was the ability to have far more sprites on screen than the NES or the Master System. Robotron would most likely become a flicker fest on those 2 systems. CX7810 is the final game, Xevious, which most likely came out near the end of '86. This game is based on the 1982 Namco arcade game. Xevious really helped the transition from fixed-screen Space Invader-style shooters to scrolling shooters. One button shoots at air targets while the other bombs ground targets, unless you flip the difficulty switch so you shoot both at the same time. There are hidden bonus targets that can be raised if you bomb the ground when your target sight turns red. There are also giant UFOs that usually destroy me pretty fast if I manage to reach them. You can play with 2 players alternating and once again have 5 modes of difficulty. This is another solid port that still holds up well today. So there you go, the Atari 7800 launch titles. These games were overall very well made. There really isn't a stinker in the bunch. The only problem is that in 1986, they felt dated, with most being based on fixed-screen arcade games that were already 4 years old or older at the time, and often lacked color due to largely black backgrounds on several of the titles. Super Mario Bros. Made gamers hungry for games with larger worlds, boss encounters, and even endings. While Nintendo was preparing for the future with new groundbreaking titles like Metroid and The Legend of Zelda coming around the corner, Atari was still relying on ports of older games, some of which were used to sell the 2600. But even though these titles may not have been ideal to launch a new system in '86, and you could argue maybe not even in '84, they are still beloved by many 7800 fans, including myself, and I think they're worthy of playing even today. But what do you think? Do you have any memories of these titles? Do you enjoy any of them today? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you next time.